Have you ever felt something invisible trying to enter your home in the dead of night, a strange presence lurking at your doorstep while you slept? Padre Pio knew exactly what to do in these moments, and today you'll discover the secret he guarded for decades. A simple glass of water on the doorstep, that's all. Seems impossible, doesn't it? But there's a scientific and spiritual reason behind this that will completely surprise you. Before you dismiss this as just an old wives' tale, let me tell you what happened at Emily's house in Asheville in 1952. She'd placed the glass as Padre Pio had instructed. The next morning, the water was completely murky, dark, as if something had been absorbed by it during the night. Padre Pio looked at that water and said something that changed that woman's life forever. He said she had been protected from a negative energy that had attempted to enter 3 times during the night. 3 attempts, all blocked by that simple glass of water. You might be wondering, how can a glass of water do that? The answer lies in the nature of water itself and in what Padre Pio discovered about it, something few saints understood. Water isn't just H2O, it's liquid memory. Each molecule carries information, vibration, energy. When you place a glass of water at the entrance of your home, you're creating an invisible energetic barrier, a filter that absorbs what shouldn't enter. But there's more, much more. Padre Pio taught that the water needed to be placed in a specific way. It wasn't just any glass, it wasn't just any place. It had to be on the threshold of the main door. The glass should be filled to the brim, and there was a specific prayer that should be said before placing it. Imagine the water as a liquid mirror, only instead of reflecting images, it reflects intentions, energies, presences trying to cross the threshold of your home. When something negative approaches, the water acts like a spiritual magnet. It absorbs, neutralizes, protects. Have you ever noticed how you feel different after a shower? Like something has been washed away. Water has this natural capacity for energetic cleansing. Padre Pio simply discovered how to amplify that 1,000-fold. In 1958, during one of his last public appearances, Padre Pio was questioned by a journalist about this practice. The reporter wanted to know if it was real or just religious folklore. Padre Pio smiled and responded with a question that silenced everyone. Have you ever seen water evaporate without heat? Have you ever seen water change color overnight? If you place that glass on your door tonight, tomorrow you will have your answer. The journalist did exactly that. The next day, he returned with wide eyes. The water had diminished by half, and there was a strange film on the surface, as if something had been filtered through it. But here's what Padre Pio never explained publicly, the secret he reserved only for his closest disciples. The water doesn't just absorb negative energy, it transforms that energy into protection for the home. It's as if each drop becomes an invisible soldier guarding your entrance. The more attempts at spiritual intrusion, the stronger the protection becomes. It's a system that strengthens with use. Now you must be thinking, does this really work today, in the 21st century? With all our technology and scientific knowledge, the answer will shock you. Dr. Masaru Emoto scientifically proved that water responds to intentions and vibrations. Its molecules reorganize according to the energy they receive. When you place that glass with the intention of protection, you are literally programming the water to act as a shield. But there's a crucial detail that Padre Pio always emphasized, a detail that determines whether this will work in your home or not. And it has to do with what you do with the water the next day. Many people make the mistake of simply throwing the water away, This is a serious mistake. Padre Pio taught that this water absorbed something during the night, and it needs to be treated specifically before being discarded. The water should be poured into the earth, preferably in a garden or pot with plants, never down the drain or toilet. Why? Because this water now carries a transmuted energy. When it goes into the earth, it completes the purification cycle. And here's something that will give you goosebumps. The plants that receive this water begin to grow differently, more vigorous, as if they have absorbed a protective force that now radiates throughout the entire house. Mrs. Rodriguez from Miami did this for a whole month. She wrote to me telling me that not only did she stop having nightmares, but the plants in her garden became so exuberant that the neighbors started asking what fertilizer she was using. She never told them it was water that had spent the night protecting her home. But let's talk about what really happens during the night when you place that glass on the door. Padre Pio described this as the invisible dance of protection. And now science is beginning to understand what he knew by spiritual intuition. Between midnight and 3 in the morning, there's what mystics call a vulnerable window. It's when the veil between dimensions becomes thinner, when stray energies seek where to nest. Your house, at this moment, is like a beacon in the darkness. The water acts as a dimensional filter. It permeates the environment around the entrance with microparticles charged with protective intention. Any negative presence that tries to cross this barrier meets resistance, as if it were trying to cross an invisible magnetic field. Padre Pio used to say that you could feel this happening, that on the first night, you might wake up between 2 and 3 in the morning, not out of fear, but out of a strange sensation, as if something were being resolved outside. And you know what's most impressive? The more you use this protection, the less you feel these nocturnal disturbances, as if the negative presences simply stop. Trying, as if the word spreads in the invisible world. It's no use trying in this house. Now, you might be wondering what kind of glass to use. Padre Pio was very specific about this. It had to be a clear glass. No plastic, no metal. Glass allows the moonlight and starlight to charge the water with additional cosmic energy. And the water, does any water work? Not exactly. Padre Pio preferred spring water or well water, but he understood that not everyone had access to that. So he taught a way to energize tap water. Before placing it in the glass, you let the water sit for a few minutes in a larger container. This allows the chlorine to evaporate and the water to breathe. Then, as you transfer it to the glass, you offer a simple prayer, a conversation with God, asking that this water become an instrument of protection. Padre Pio said the most powerful prayer for this was, Lord, may this water be a mirror of your light and a barrier against all darkness that does not come from you. Simple, yet powerfully intentional. And here's something few know. Padre Pio tested this practice in hundreds of homes throughout his life. He kept detailed records of the results, and he discovered fascinating patterns. Homes with young children showed the quickest results. Children, with their natural sensitivity, perceived the shift in the home's energy almost immediately. They stopped having nightmares. They slept more soundly. Homes with sick individuals also responded impressively. Not that the water cured physical illnesses, but the more protected environment facilitated recovery, as if people could truly rest for the first time in a long time. But Padre Pio also discovered something worrying. Some homes offered more resistance. The water evaporated too quickly, or it took on a strange odor. This indicated a very strong presence trying to enter. In these cases, he recommended using 2 glasses, one on each side of the door. And in extreme situations, he guided the person to bless the entire house with holy water, before starting to use the protective glass. Cleanse first, then protect, he would say. Are you beginning to understand why this practice quietly spread among Padre Pio's devotees? Why there's an entire network of people who do this religiously every night? Because it works. And it works in a way you can verify with your own eyes. But there's an aspect of this protection that Padre Pio considered even more important than the energy barrier itself. And it has to do with what happens to you when you establish this sacred routine. Every night, when you place that glass on the doorstep, you're doing more than protecting your home. You're declaring your intention to live in harmony with the sacred. You're creating a ritual that connects you to something larger than yourself. Padre Pio said this was prayer in action, that each simple, sincere act of spiritual protection strengthened your connection with God, and that this strengthened connection was the true protection. The water is only the instrument, he used to say. The real barrier is your faith in motion. And do you know what happens when you practice this for an entire month? When you transform this into a sacred routine? You begin to feel a profound change, not only in the energy of your home, but in your own energy. You become more centered, more internally protected, as if you've developed a spiritual shield that goes with you wherever you go. Emily, that woman from Asheville I mentioned at the beginning, practiced this for the rest of her life. She died at 92, peacefully, in her own home. And according to her family, until her last day, she placed that glass on the doorstep every night. On the night she died, something extraordinary happened. Her children found the glass empty in the morning, completely empty, as if the water had completely evaporated during the night. They interpreted this as a sign, as if the protection had accompanied Emily on her final journey. Padre Pio always said that the death of a protected person is different. It's serene, because they spent their entire lives practicing connection with the sacred. And in the final moment, that connection becomes a bridge, not an abyss. Now maybe you're thinking, okay, that's spiritually beautiful, but I need something practical. I need to know if this will work in my real life, with my real problems. And I perfectly understand that need, so let me tell you about more recent cases. Ordinary people who started using this protection and saw concrete changes in their lives. Lucas, an engineer from New York City, was going through a terrible phase, constant nightmares. He would always wake up between 2 and 3 in the morning with an inexplicable feeling of terror. He had already consulted doctors, taken sleeping pills. Nothing worked. When he learned about Padre Pio's glass, he decided to try it. He was skeptical, but he was desperate. On the first night, he woke up at his usual time, but instead of terror, he felt a strange peace, as if something was looking after him. On the third night, he slept the entire night for the first time in months. Anna, from Chicago, had a different problem. Her house was always agitated, constant arguments among the residents, a heavy atmosphere that no one could explain. Neighbors complained about strange noises coming from there during the early morning hours. She started using the glass. In a week, the neighbors stopped complaining. In 2 weeks, the arguments decreased dramatically. In a month, her home became a place of peace, and Robert from Los Angeles had something even more specific. His house was being visited by presences he could feel but not see. Objects would change places, doors would open on their own. He was considering moving. Padre Pio's glass changed everything. In 3 days, the manifestation stopped completely, as if a switch had been turned off. These are just 3 examples among hundreds I could tell. Ordinary people who discovered the power of this simple protection and transformed their lives. But here's the question Padre Pio heard most often. What if I forget to put the glass out one night? Does the protection break? His answer was always the same. The protection is in your intention, not in the perfection of your practice. If you forget one night, simply start again the following night. God understands our human failings. He explained that the important thing was the consistency of the intention, not the perfection of the execution, and that the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Like brushing your teeth before bed. Now there's a specific time to place the glass that Padre Pio considered ideal. It wasn't right at dusk. It wasn't at bedtime. It was between 9 and 10 at night. The moment when the house is preparing for rest, but there's still movement and life. This timing allows the water to know the energy of the house as it calms down. And when sleep arrives, the protection is already established and active. And there's something else few know. Padre Pio taught that you could program the water with specific intentions beyond general protection. If someone in the house was sick, you could ask the water to absorb the energies that hindered healing. If you were facing financial hardship, you could ask for protection against energies blocking prosperity. If family conflicts arose, you could ask the water to create a field of harmony. Water, according to Padre Pio, was a liquid messenger, capable of carrying your specific intentions to the spiritual plane and bringing back corresponding answers. But he always warned, never ask the water to harm anyone. Never use this practice for revenge or manipulation. Holy water only responds to pure intentions. If you try to use it for evil, it will simply stop working for you. This was one of the sacred rules of the practice, and Padre Pio was inflexible about it. Now, you might be wondering, what if I live in an apartment? What if I don't have a door that opens directly to the street? How does the protection work? Padre Pio had considered this as well. For apartments, he recommended placing the glass on the threshold of the main apartment door, the one leading to the building hallway. The protection worked the same way, creating a barrier at the entrance to your personal space. And what if you live with others who don't believe in this practice? Padre Pio said that wasn't a problem. The protection worked regardless of the beliefs of other residents. God protects the entire house when a sincere person asks for protection, he explained, but there was a condition. The person placing the glass must be sincere in their intention. They can't do it out of mere curiosity or to test if it works. There must be a genuine intention of protection and connection with the sacred. The water knows the difference between faith and experimentation, Padre Pio used to say. And here's something that may seem strange, but many people report after a few weeks of using this protection, you begin to feel when it's time to change the water sooner. Sometimes, on a particularly charged night, you might wake up with the intuition that you need to change the water immediately. And when you do, you feel an instant relief, as if you've removed an invisible weight from the environment. Padre Pio explained that this was your spiritual sensitivity developing, that the constant practice of protection was sharpening your perception of subtle energies. You're learning the language of protection, he said, and the more fluent you become, the more protected you become. But perhaps Padre Pio's most impressive discovery about this practice was what he called the radiant effect. He noticed that protected houses began to positively influence neighboring houses, as if the protective energy subtly spread throughout the block. Neighbors started sleeping better, conflicts decreased on the street, even animals behaved more calmly in the area. A truly protected house becomes a blessing for the entire neighborhood, he observed. And this leads us to something very important that Padre Pio discovered about the collective power of this practice. When several people in the same area begin to use the glass protection, the effect multiplies exponentially. It's as if an invisible network of protection is created, covering the entire area, a community energetic shield that benefits everyone, even those who don't know it exists. Padre Pio dreamed of a world where this practice would be as common as locking the door before going to bed, where each house would be a point of light in a global network of spiritual protection. And perhaps, just perhaps, when you start doing this tonight, you're joining that network. You're contributing to something much bigger than the protection of your own home. You're helping to create a slightly more protected world, one house at a time. But there's something I haven't told you yet. Something Padre Pio discovered in his final years, and it completely changes how we understand this protection. He realized that the water wasn't just absorbing negative energy. It was creating an archive, a liquid memory of everything that tried to enter the house. And this memory could be read. Padre Pio developed the ability to look at the used water and know exactly what kind of presence had tried to cross the barrier. Whether it was just dispersed negative energy or something more targeted, whether it came from a specific person or something older. And here's what will chill you to the bone. He discovered that some houses were visited by the same presences, night after night. As if something was insisting on entering that specific residence. In these cases, Padre Pio taught an advanced technique. Instead of immediately pouring the water into the earth, you let it rest in a separate container for 3 days. If after 3 days the water is still murky or has a strange smell, this indicates a persistent presence. The solution? Padre Pio instructed the person to bless that water 3 times and then pour it into running water. A river, a stream, or even heavy rain. The running water would definitively carry away any energy trying to attach itself to the house. Still, water stagnates. Running water cleanses, he explained. And what's even more fascinating, modern science is beginning to validate what Padre Pio intuitively knew. Research on water memory shows that it can indeed store vibrational information, that each molecule can carry data about the energies it has come into contact with. Dr. Jacques Benveniste proved that water retains the memory of substances that have been dissolved in it, even after those substances are completely removed. If this works for chemical substances, why wouldn't it work for subtle energies? And Dr. Luc Montagnier, Nobel Prize winner in medicine, demonstrated that water can transmit quantum information, that it is, literally, a means of communication between dimensions of reality that we still don't fully understand. Padre Pio was 100 years ahead of science. He intuitively understood that water was a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds, and he used this bridge to protect the people who trusted him. But here's something few know. Padre Pio didn't just teach this practice, he perfected it over decades and discovered variations for specific situations. For houses where people had died under traumatic circumstances, he recommended adding a pinch of salt to the water. The salt, he said, accelerated the energetic cleansing and helped lost souls find their way to the light. For houses with very sensitive children who saw or felt presences, he instructed placing 2 glasses, one at the main door and another at the child's bedroom window. Children are open bridges, he said. They need double protection. For those who work with negative energies professionally, doctors, police officers, therapists, Padre Pio taught a technique he called the energetic bath. Before entering their homes, these individuals would wet their hands in the water from the glass and run them over their necks and wrists. This prevented them from bringing the negativity of their work into their homes. Your hands touch the pain of others all day, he explained. Cleanse them before touching your family. Now you might be thinking, this is all very specific. How did Padre Pio discover all this? And the answer will surprise you. He tested constantly. Padre Pio was a mystic, but he was also a practical experimenter. He applied these techniques in hundreds of cases and observed the results. He noted what worked and what didn't. He refined the methods. It was as if he were decoding the spiritual laws of the universe through practical experimentation. And water was his laboratory. And do you know what Padre Pio's most revolutionary discovery about this practice was? That it doesn't just protect your home, it trains you to become a spiritual protector. Every night you place that glass, you're strengthening your ability to perceive and neutralize negative energies. You're developing a spiritual sensitivity that goes far beyond protecting your home. People who practice this for years begin to perceive negative presences in other places, shopping malls with heavy energy, offices where there's a lot of conflict, even people who are carrying negative energy. And most importantly, they develop the ability to neutralize these energies with intention alone, as if they had become human glasses of water, capable of absorbing and transmuting negative energy wherever they are. Padre Pio called this the gift of purification. And he believed that any sincere person could develop it through the constant practice of protection with water. You're not just protecting your home, he said. You're becoming an agent of protection in the world. And here's something that will change your perspective on this entire practice. Padre Pio revealed that true protection doesn't come from the water. The water is just the training. The true protection comes from your developed ability to maintain a pure and constant intention of harmony with the sacred. The water teaches you to do this. But after a while, you no longer need the water. You become the water. It's like learning to ride a bike with training wheels. In the beginning, you need the training wheels, but after a while, you can ride without them. The protection becomes part of who you are. But Padre Pio always warned, even when you develop this ability, never completely abandon the practice of the glass, because it serves as a constant reminder, an anchor that keeps you connected to the source of protection. And there's another aspect of this practice that is profoundly personal. Padre Pio discovered that water absorbs not only external negative energy, but also negative energy that you yourself produce. Anger, fear, resentment, deep sadness. All of this is absorbed by the water overnight. You wake up not only protected from external threats, but cleansed of the emotional toxins you created yourself during the day. It's as if you're doing a 24-hour energetic cleansing, waking up renewed every day, starting each day with purer energy. Sarah from Austin told me something amazing about this. She was going through a very difficult divorce. Anger, resentment, a desire for revenge. Feelings that were consuming her from within. When she started using Padre Pio's glass, something unexpected happened. Each morning she woke up with less anger, as if part of the pain had been drained during the night. In 3 months, she was able to completely forgive her ex-husband, not through conscious effort, but because the anger simply wasn't there anymore. It had been absorbed and transmuted by the water, night after night. It was as if I were doing therapy with God every night, she told me. And this is perhaps the most important function of this practice, not just protection against external energies, but the constant purification of your own internal energy. Padre Pio knew that the greatest threat to our peace doesn't come from outside. It comes from within, from the toxic emotions we feed, from the negative thoughts we cultivate, from the wounds we refuse to heal. The nightly water takes care of all that, silently, lovingly, without judgment. Now, there's a question Padre Pio often heard. What if I travel? How do I stay protected when I'm not at home? His answer was simple and brilliant. You take a small vial of water from your home, water that has already been used in protection several times. and you put a few drops of this water into a glass wherever you're staying. Your protection travels with you, he explained. Because it's in the water that knows your energy. People who do this report that they sleep much better in hotels, at relatives' houses, or anywhere away from home, as if they carry with them an invisible bubble of familiar protection. And here's something that will sound like science fiction, but that Padre Pio taught with complete conviction. He believed that this practice was preparing humanity for something greater. That we were entering an era where spiritual protection would become as necessary as physical protection, where the ability to neutralize negative energy would be a basic survival skill. A time will come, he prophesied, when those who know how to protect their energy will be the ones who can maintain sanity and inner peace. Looking at the world today with all the anxiety, depression, and conflict we see around us, perhaps Padre Pio was right. Perhaps this simple practice is more relevant today than ever before. Perhaps each person who places a glass of water on their doorstep is not only protecting themselves, but helping humanity develop a capacity that will be crucial for our collective future. And do you know what's most beautiful about all this? That you don't have to be special to do this. You don't have to be a saint, have mystical gifts, or know complicated prayers. You just need a glass, water, and the sincere intention to protect your home and family. Padre Pio always said that God manifests himself through the simplest things, and that the most powerful miracles happen through the humblest gestures. A glass of water on the doorstep. Simple as that, but charged with all the power of the sacred operating through the faith of an ordinary person. Tonight, when you place that glass on your door, remember, you're not just protecting your home. You're participating in something much greater. You are connecting with a sacred tradition, spanning centuries. You are honoring the wisdom of a saint who dedicated his life to teaching people to live in harmony with the divine. And you are contributing to an invisible network of protection spreading across the world, one home at a time. And perhaps, when you wake tomorrow morning, you will feel something different, a peace that wasn't there before. A sense that you are not alone, that something greater is watching over you, because that is the true promise of this practice. Not just protection, but connection. Not just safety, but serenity. Not just a barrier against evil, but a bridge to good. Padre Pio used to say that the greatest miracle wasn't preventing bad things from happening. The greatest miracle was helping people discover they were never truly alone. That protection was always available. That love was always watching over them. And that sometimes, all we need to do is place a simple glass of water on the doorstep and trust. Because faith, in the end, isn't about understanding how things work. It's about trusting that they do work and acting on that trust. And when you act on that trust, when you place that glass every night with the sincere faith of a child, something magical happens. The universe conspires to protect you. Not because you deserve more than others, but because you have opened yourself to receive, because you have created a channel through which protection can flow. And perhaps that is the true lesson Padre Pio wanted to teach. Not that a glass of water has magical powers, but that you have the power to connect with the sacred through the simplest of gestures, and that this connection is the source of all true protection. The water is only the beginning. The real miracle is what happens inside you when you choose to believe you are worthy of protection, when you choose to believe you are not alone in this world, and when you wake up tomorrow morning and see that water that spent the night protecting you. Perhaps you will finally understand what Padre Pio knew all along, that divine love is not an abstract theory, it's a practical, tangible force that operates through the water, through faith, through you, and that it is always available to those who have eyes to see and hearts to receive. That is true protection. Not just a barrier against evil, but a constant embrace of good, a daily reminder that you are loved, cared for, protected. A glass of water on the doorstep, simple as that, and as profound as the ocean of divine love that surrounds us all, always.